If you want to create your first ChatGPT plugin using Nextjs on Vercel, and if you want to have some great looking Open Graph preview on ChatGPT like this one, well, it means you are in the right video. So let's dig into it. Hi guys, my name is Kevin. I'm one of the co-founders of PluginLab, and in this video, I'm going to show you how you can get started and create your first plugin and host it on Vercel in addition with PluginLab. For this tutorial, we're going to use the WeatherGPT plugin, which is built on Nextjs, and I'm going to show you why this boilerplate is amazing and why I suggest you get started with it for building your first ChatGPT plugins. Let's get started. The first thing you have to do is to go and find the GPT boilerplate on GitHub. So it's here, it's under the account of Steven. Click on fork, and that will kind of copy the repository under your own GitHub account. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to integrate Vercel and GitHub. But if you want to use another Git hosting platform such as GitLab or Bitbucket, you just have to clone the repository and push your repo on those platforms. And steps to synchronize that with Vercel will be kind of similar. Here I have my fork and I will just clone it. So I will open my terminal, go on my favorite folder and just git clone the repository. Then you're going to open the boilerplate in your favorite editor. Here I'm using WebStorm, but you can use VS Code, for example. And I will just run npm install to be sure I'm installing all the dependencies required for this boilerplate. Let's have a look to the structure of this boilerplate. Here you have a location folder, and this location folder, if you know Nextjs, you understand that it's a dynamic route, which means every time a user will hit like your domain / a location, whatever it is, Nextjs will load those pages. So for example, when ChatGPT will return a link to the weather of a particular city, like in this example, the Open Graph image will be generated thanks to this file here, and the link here will lead to a web page. And as you can see, this is our route. So this is domain / location. And if I use any location here, like Paris, for example, the backend will just request the weather in that particular location using the weather API. So if you want to have a look, it's very simple. When we load this page, it triggers the get weather data with the location, and get weather data just sends a request to the weather API. So now you have to note that for our Next.js application to work, we'll need to add the weather API key on Vercel, and I will show you that later in this video. That's it for this folder. Now let's have a look to the API. The API just exposes a route, and this uses the Vercel edge function. So basically, when ChatGPT is going to make a request to our backend, this route will be triggered, and this endpoint will return some data about the location and the weather in the location, as well as a link. And this link is the link we saw previously. So yeah, this is the endpoint that will be used by ChatGPT. Something to note, you can see that the info link contains the URL of your application. So once we'll deploy the application on Vercel, we'll have to update that URL. Then you have the components directory. So here, nothing special, just some page data and some useful component to display the data of your app. I would just let you go over that. We're not going to change that in this video. It's not useful. And in the lib directory, there is just, a function that's used to request the weather API, and we saw it previously. Then we have the main page, which will be displayed if you look at the root domain of your application. So here, for example, and you can see that if you hit the root domain, it always displays San Francisco. So that's because the main page by default will fall back to San Francisco if you have no data. This is not super important for you to understand how to install the plugin, but yeah, it's good to know what's going on here. Then you have a public folder, and in this one we have the well-known file, which is very important because, as you probably know, the well-known file is required for ChatGPT to work. Basically, this file will describe to ChatGPT how your plugin works, and you'll see also that this file refers to the Open API specification that we'll see later in this video. So if you don't know what a manifest file is, just a quick recap. The manifest file will explain ChatGPT what's the name of your plugin, what's the description, how ChatGPT could use this plugin, for example, and some legal information like, you know, your contact email and things like that. Another interesting file will be the openapi.json file. So basically this file will be the description of your API and will explain ChatGPT every single endpoint of your API it could use if he wants. So here we can see it refers only to one endpoint. It's the endpoint we saw previously, so the /API/weather to get the weather of a given country. And here there is just a small description of the expected query parameters. So this endpoint expects a location in a query parameters. So the manifest file and the Open API file are mandatory if you want to create a plugin, because it describes mainly how ChatGPT will be able to use it. However, we'll see later in the video that PluginLab will handle that for us. So as a quick summary, when you install a plugin, ChatGPT will first look for the manifest file and the Open API specification to understand how your plugin will work. Then when a user will use the plugin, ChatGPT will attempt to send a request to the backend, and for that it will use this route that will return some information about the weather and a link. Once the link will be previewed on the ChatGPT window, then we'll generate the Open Graph preview thanks to this particular file here that will generate an image for us. And when the user will click the link to go and see the weather of the given city, for example, then the location page will be used to display the given weather for the given location. Now we understand what we're going to build here. It's time to deploy it on Vercel. So first you'll go to vercel.com, create an account if you don't have one, and I will create a new project. Here I will have to give access to my GitHub account, so I will click here, select my account, and I will select the repository of my WeatherGPT plugin. And I will click on install. That's it. I can import it in one click on Vercel. And now I can just give it the name I want. I will keep this one. Something we don't want to forget is to add our weather API key. So if you remember it, this file here needs a weather API key. So I will add the variable name. Then you go to weatherapi.com. You can create a free account and get your first API key for free. So I will copy mine and I will add it on my Vercel project. And that's about it. You don't have anything else to configure. You just have to click on deploy. So here Vercel is building my project. It can take a few minutes, and after a few minutes it has been deployed. So what you can do is click on continue to dashboard, and then you have a domain that Vercel created for us. So I will click here and I will have the preview of my website, which is cool. So in a few minutes, we deployed our ChatGPT plugin, including our front end and our back end. So this is amazing. To install it on ChatGPT, we would have some extra configuration to do, especially on the manifest file. But instead of doing that in the source code, I will show you how we can do it by connecting PluginLab, and you'll understand how powerful it is to use PluginLab in addition of Vercel for your ChatGPT plugin. So let's go to pluginlab.ai and create an account. Here, I don't want to start with an example plugin, so I will click on configure and I will give a name to my plugin. And here you can see this form represents your manifest file. So what you're going to do is just go and look for the manifest file on the code source, and you'll be able to copy every single field. So this form is your manifest file. So instead of filling out the JSON file in your source code, you just have to fill out this form, and PluginLab will handle everything for you. And this will be especially convenient when you want to add authentication, for example, because you'll not have to tweak your manifest file in your source code. PluginLab will handle that for you and add everything that's required to manifest file without you to have to think about it. Here I'm just adding the same description for model that is in the source code, because this is the most important for ChatGPT to understand how to use your plugin. And then I will not use the URL that is on the source code because we deployed it to another domain. So here you'll use the domain that has been attributed by Vercel, and the logo file is located at logo.png. For this tutorial, I'm going to use my email and my website for the legal information, but keep in mind that if you want to submit your plugin to OpenAI later, you have to add some real information here. Otherwise, your plugin will not be compliant to OpenAI policies. So I will click on Save. And now PluginLab is asking for the OpenAPI specification file. So basically what we'll have to do is go here, open the openapi.json file, copy everything, use the OAS editor, and paste everything here. That's about it. You don't have to do anything else, and PluginLab will handle the rest. Then PluginLab asks for the backend server domain. So because our website and our backend API are stored and running at the same place, what we'll have to do is just to copy this domain here. So I will just copy that and paste it here, and I click on Save. Now for the version name, I suggest you add just v1, for example, which is enough. The thing is, PluginLab will version automatically your OpenAPI specification, which means you'll be able to roll out a new version of your OpenAPI spec at any time without redeploying your source code. So I will create the first version of my plugin, and that's it. Your plugin is now configured using PluginLab. So I'm not going to show you all the features of PluginLab. I will add you some links in the description. But what we'll do now is test our plugin and see if it works. So we'll install it on ChatGPT. To do so, we're not going to use the URL provided by Vercel, because now ChatGPT will not talk directly to Vercel anymore, but instead it will start talking with PluginLab. We'll open the first card here and we'll copy the preview domain that has been provided by PluginLab. Don't worry if this URL is a bit weird. Actually, this is a preview URL, so you'll be able to add a custom domain later on PluginLab if you want. And you'll see how powerful it is later in this video. So basically, let's copy this URL and go on ChatGPT and open the plugin store, click on develop your own plugin and paste the URL. Here, ChatGPT found the manifest file and the OpenAPI specification file provided by PluginLab, and I will install the plugin. Let's test it. And boom, ChatGPT is using our plugin. So I get the response. And the good thing now is if I go to PluginLab here and I go to user events, you can see there is an event. And the reason of that is PluginLab acts as a proxy layer between ChatGPT and your plugin, which means we are able to track everything for you. And this will be quite convenient for you, especially if you want to debug your plugin or understand how your users are using your plugin. So here I can see the request, I can open it, I can see the location, I can see if it's a success or an error, and many other information. Later on PluginLab, you could configure an authentication. It's very simple and convenient. I already explained how to do that in some other videos. I will add the link on the description below. With PluginLab, you can configure an authentication portal and a payment portal for your users in 10 minutes. You don't have to write any line of code to get started. You can get your first paid users in 10 minutes. That's it. If you're interested about it, look at the description below. So here we had a good result, but we're not done yet, because if you look at this link, for example, and you open it, you can see this is not our URL. So the reason of that is we've not changed it in the source code. So what you have to do basically is just to, I mean, you can remove the file, the OpenAPI spec and the well-known, because now this is handled by PluginLab. You don't need it anymore. And what you'll do is you'll copy your Vercel domain, and basically you have to replace it on the backend endpoint that will return the link. So I would just replace it with my own domain. I push it on GitHub, and now let's have a look to Vercel. If I go to deployments, you can see that because my GitHub account is connected to my Vercel account and my Vercel project, here my project is building again and will be deployed with the new modifications. Now my new version is ready, so it's deployed on Vercel, and I will try another request to the plugin to see how it works. You can see it worked as expected, and now if I click on this link, I'm redirected to our own domain. So our plugin is finally working as expected. Congrats guys, we finally deployed our WeatherGPT plugin. We saw in this video how to connect it and host it on Vercel, and we also installed it on top of PluginLab so we can track our users, and we can also activate later on some amazing features like authentication portal and payment portal on PluginLab. So if you want to get more information on how to use PluginLab and how to benefit from this platform, I suggest you go on the description. I will add the link to a video where I explain both how to authenticate your users and how to monetize and get your first paid subscribers in 10 minutes. If you have any question about ChatGPT or ChatGPT plugins, feel free to ask in the comment below, and also feel free to subscribe and to ring the bell so you'll not miss any video. That's about this video guys, so I wish you a good rest of your day. Bye bye.